Okay, today we're going to use the limited palette that I showed in the first video of this series to paint a small tangerine. And so I'm going to start with initially just the drawing. Essentially, this is a small tangerine. I usually tone the canvas gray, but because this painting is so small, I'm just going to basically do it in white. There's a tangerine and there's a cast shadow, and it's on a piece of cloth and sort of indicated all that. So what I'm going to go in first is I'm going to put in from the orange that I showed you how to mix in the limited palette. I'm going to put in my, just going to paint in, essentially mass in just the orange for the tangerine. The light is coming from the left and from above, so that's essentially so I've masked in the orange for the tangerine. Now I'm going to basically put in a little darker version of the orange, which I've mixed from one of the browns I described, which is an orange brown. So this is where there's the turning edge, and this is where the tangerine is going into shadow. Now I'm going to need to mix a little blue in, which is the complement to gray it down, which I'm going to do in a second here. There's a transition region. I'm not making any hard edges. I'm going to mix a little blue in, just a touch of ultramarine blue, and I'm mixing it in with the brown. Okay, the blue is the complement to the orange, and you see that immediately darkens it and dulls it, so as it goes into shadow. And there's your turning edge. Okay, now I'm going to go back into the area where the light is. And I'm going to lighten that up. First I'm going to indicate the cast shadow, which is going to be on a white cloth with a little bit of purple. And again, this is from one of the purples that I mixed. And this would be the cast shadow. And like I said, it's going to be on a white tablecloth, which has some yellow in it. So now let me go in and basically work on the lighter areas. I'm going to pick up a clean brush. I'm actually going to lighten this area here. This is the reflected light area. And I'm going to go through the transition. And I'm going to use a little bit of white. Well, actually, I'm going to use a little bit of yellow. So this is where the light is really hitting. That's where your highlight's going to be. Let me add a little darker orange near the turning edge, and I'm going to blend that in with some again, this is from the colors that I mixed the other day. Let me just blend that in. You can see this tangerine is starting to form now. So I'm going to go back in and reestablish some of the highlight areas. Much thicker paint now. A little bit more yellow. This is where the highlight's going to be. The orange has sort of a rippled surface, sort of dotting that in. Now I'm going to go in with some white with a touch of blue in it to make it really bright, because blue is the complementary color to orange. And this is where the light is hitting, and it's hitting off the skin of the tangerine. Did I say orange? It's a tangerine. I'm going to use a little more white. And there's a little okay, so now let's put in the where the stem would be, and I'm going to use a touch of green there. And I've actually mixed the green with a little bit of orange. And right here, that's where the stem would be. Make it a little darker orange. This is again the brown that I mixed the other day. And that's where the stem would be. Alright, so now let's put in the background. Just going to mask that in. I'm going to put the tablecloth in first. That's just a white with a touch of yellow in it. I'm going to sharpen this edge up, which is the closest edge to us. Sharpen it with the white. Soften the cast shadow edge as it moves away from the tangerine. And now I'm going to put the background in, and I think I'm just going to make that a sort of a brownish gray. So I'm going to take brown, and I'm going to mix it with a little blue and white. And it's going to give me a brownish gray. Make it a little darker. I'm using a little bit of medium now. I'm using some of the neomegalic that I talked about before. You could use any medium. You could use any oil paint medium. And I'm blurring this back edge because it's receding away from us. And I'm merging the darker background with the tablecloth And notice that I'm making everything uneven. The darker background is about 2/3, whereas the tablecloth is about 1/3. And I'm blurring the edge where it merges with the tablecloth and the cast shadow. Going to make it a little bit darker. It still is not quite dark enough. Yeah, that's better. And again, I want to blur this back edge. And let me go back in and just punch up the tablecloth a little bit. I'm going to put some really thick paint in the front to make that come forward, with a little bit of reflection from the tangerine. Let me reestablish the cast shadow a little bit better. Finally, let me just touch up the orange a little bit more. I'm going to put some more thicker paint in right near the transition region. And lighten it a little bit near where the reflected light is coming up from the tablecloth. I'm putting a little more yellow in where the highlight is. Lighten up the orange a little bit. And again, I'm going back in with white. I'm going to just touch up where you'd actually see some of the pitting or the rough skin of the tangerine. And I want that to fade into the background. Well, we're almost there. Let me go back in and just touch up the where the stem is a little bit, again with green. It's a little too bright. Let me dull it down. So I'll go in with a little bit of red, which is the complement of the green. Make that a little duller. Okay, we're almost there. Just clean up this edge a little bit. And that's pretty much it. We'll touch this up later on, but that's it for right now. And that's a very quick alla prima painting of a tangerine, and I will probably put a few more details in when it dries.